Hey, so welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a recap of SIREN Season 1, Episode 2, The Lure. So Xander and his father, they're obsessed with finding out what this thing is. And so they decided to take the boat out for whatever reason at night. I guess they were trying to recreate the same conditions. They were out at night when they initially saw it, so they went out. They made plans to go out again. And so Ben offered to go with them. Now, of course, he went out to help, but he also went out to protect Ren just in case they did find what they were looking for. And so they were out and they saw something coming towards the boat. It never came above water, so you don't know what it was exactly. Xander's father was about to harpoon the shit out of it. Ben grabbed the harpoon and was basically like, look, if it is what you say it is, we shouldn't kill it. We should try to preserve it or save it, because that's who Ben is. He rescues animals. And so he jumps off. They start to hear some wailing coming from somewhere. And so they're trying to figure out where the sound is coming from. And so Ben, he jumps off the boat and, you know, swims under. And he sees that the military or whoever has attached this device to the bottom of their boat. And it's emitting this wailing sound. It's the sound that mermaid sirens make. And it also has a camera on it. And so it's unclear whether or not it had been there for which is how they figured out what they caught the first time, or if they put it there after that whole encounter. And so they had attached this device to their rig, I'm assuming to lure more of their mermaids in so they can catch more for whatever reasons they have. So Ben was able to dislodge it. He brought it on the boat, and now they're trying to figure out what the hell is this, because at this point they still have no idea where Chris is. Nobody steals her from him. He's not been taken to any local hospitals. And so Xander is like, you know, we need to, you know, that's their friend. He's laser focused on this and the whole cover up and trying to find out what exactly they're hiding. So you see Ren, she comes back to shore, and you know, she's just walking through life, just carefree and loving life, stark naked through town, right? So she's walking through what looks like a trailer park, and you have this woman with her two young daughters. I guess she was getting them out of the car, and she saw this woman, and they're kind of looking, and she hurried them in the house. You know, she saw this clothesline. She pulled the shirt off, put it on. The owner, but looked like trash, really, came out to confront her about stealing her clothes. And Ren basically picked up this metal rod and basically threw it through the metal of her trailer. And so she was like, okay. So she kind of backed off, and she took her ass back in her trailer. So the sheriff is now investigating the body in the woods. Because if you remember in the first episode, the guy that tried to rape Ren and she killed him, well, they just came across the scene, or somebody came across the scene, and they're now investigating the scene. And so they could tell by the positioning of his clothes, and maybe he tried to assault somebody and they killed him, and then they're making all these assumptions about how it had to be a man, had to be about this height and weight, and it had to be incredibly strong, and the whole nine. So already they're off, but of course they don't know that. And so Ren makes it to Ben's place, but of course he's not there. And then she goes to the rescue center where Maddie is there, and she's getting the food together to feed the seals. So she's trying to call Ben because she hadn't spoken to Ben since the previous night when she had left him with Ren to deal with her, because she had to go to class. So she left Ben to deal with Ren because at that point they thought that she just had a rash. So he went to get some ointment or something on it, to put on it, if you remember from the first episode. So Maddie's there. She's still trying to get in contact with Ben, and then you see it in the background, like Brenda's just standing there staring at her, and so it almost creates this atmosphere like, okay, what is she doing? Like, is she going to attack Maddie or what? But you know, Maddie, she heard a noise, turned around. By the time Ren was gone, and she's trying to figure out, like, what in the world is going on? So Ren makes it to Helen's shop. So of course Helen, judging by their first encounter, knew what Ren was. So Ren goes back to her shop, and she basically explained to Helen that she's there looking for someone else. And so Helen now is like, oh, there's two of you here. And so she was able to gesture. She knew enough to try to explain to her, yeah, I'm looking for someone else. So Xander, okay, Calvin is also is roommates and friends with Xander, who also works on the rig. So Xander brings the little device home, and he said, oh, we were out and Ben found it on the boat. And Calvin really has an issue with Ben. He sees Ben as this privileged guy who was, as he puts it, slumming it with them until he went off to college. And so Calvin really doesn't like Ben, even though it doesn't seem like Ben has done anything to him. But Calvin just like, oh, you took him out? And Xander was like, yeah, you know, we have a history with him, and I've been friends for a year. We've known basically each other all our lives. So basically, your problem with him is not my problem with him. I understand that you don't care too much for him. You never got along with him, but that ain't my problem. So he went out with us, and we found this thing here. So Ben, you find out what Ben is at home. He calls Maddie. She comes by. And then he shows her the scratches on his neck. And so now she's trying to explain to her what happened. So of course, you tell somebody, oh, I was attacked by a mermaid. Who's gonna believe that? So he ends up taking her back to the rescue center because they rescue sea creatures. They actually have cameras on the docks to check their progress underwater. And so the entire thing was caught on camera. So he was able to show her Ren and her transformation and her attacking him, and now she's sitting there just like with her mouth open, like I can't believe I didn't believe you. And he's like, well, I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing to believe. So now she's just sitting there with kind of her head. They're both still trying to make sense of what happened. Ben and Maddie decided they're going to go and look for whatever it is, right? And at this point, Ren is still at Helen's shop, and so they talked for a little while. She gave her some clothes, and so Helen went out to get Ren something to eat. So she's at the shop and she's buying the place out, all the salmon, the crabs, the lobster, and they're kind of looking at her like, who's she trying to feed? Like she's having a dinner party or something? She tell about it. But remember, Helen is the town eccentric, so they're kind of like, okay. And so Ben goes over to his dad, goes over to his dad's, I don't know, wharf shipping, I don't know, because he runs that whole thing. He owns a company that does all the fishing and distributing and all kind of stuff. And so he goes over to his dad to ask him about their ancestor, who's considered the founder of the town, who fell in love with the mermaid and the whole thing. And he said, well, maybe things are not as we told him. Basically, they said he was just crazy. He wasn't like this great guy that we're talking about. A lot of people just think that he was just a lunatic. And he said, that's pretty much it. And anything that Helen tells you, like, her ass crazy too. She's now in the town loon, so I wouldn't put much stock into what Helen is talking about. And so, because in the first episode, he said that she gave him this book about the history of the town. They talked about the slaughter of the sirens and the mermaids, and that his great I guess grandfather founded the town. Their family have a lot of blood on their hands. Basically, is what she told him in the first episode. So now he's saying, whatever she told you, I wouldn't put much stock into it, whatever. So Xander gets home and Calvin is there playing video games. No, wait a minute, backtrack. So Xander and Calvin, they coming back from the store, and he's still on him about Ben for some reason. I was like, I can't believe that you told him. And Xander was like, who else would we tell? This is the kind of stuff that he does. He's in marine biology, right? So they get back into their apartment and they realize that the device that they found on the bottom of the ship is gone. And so now it feeds even more into their paranoia about the military following them and watching them. And so now Calvin is like, I don't think that we should be talking in here. You know, the military might be listening. And Xander is kind of looking around like, what the hell? So I mean, it's just like one crazy thing after another. Maddie and Ben go to Helen's shop. So Helen's just getting back from buying up the place, and they're trying to pick her brain to see what else they can find out. And she basically told them, I've told you all that I know. And so you find that the military didn't take the device. Ben did. So he put the device on the table after she had seen this before. They saw, you know, they found it in the water, and then he switched it on. So that was the recording of this wailing. And so the whole time they're talking to her, they're seeing, you know, they hear stuff going on upstairs. It's Ren upstairs in the apartment, but of course they don't know that yet. And so Rena's just going around because she's trying to figure out what things are, and she's opening things, and she's making a lot of noise. And so when they switched this thing on, Ren basically broke the lock because she had locked her in. So she broke the lock, made it downstairs, and what you found is that it was flashing between this device and the sounds and what they were doing to her sister. So they basically, they were basically restraining her so that they could withdraw spinal fluid to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. And so she was wailing from being in pain. She's, you know, wailing from being in captivity, you know, just a sea creatures. There used to be, you know, wide open ocean. And so she's in a small container, and she's been there for however many days. And these people are constantly running tests on her. And so the recording was of her sister. And so when she heard that, it sent her into obviously she got very upset, and so she kind of broke the lock on the door and came through, and she snatched the thing from him, and they had to explain to her that her sister wasn't in there. And what you found is that some of the water, when she grabbed it, some of the seawater fell on her, and so it almost looks like it burns their skin, their human skin. And so once it does that, their scales and stuff starts to reappear. So that's basically what happens when she fell into the water and she transformed back into the mermaid. So now Ben's going to go back to talk to Xander to try to find out, maybe there were some holes in the story, maybe there was something they forgot to tell him that would give them an idea of basically what is going on. And so Ren, she stormed out, and of course they're following behind her. So now she's gonna go with them to meet with Xander. So Maddie, Ben, and Ren, they go to the local bar to meet up with Xander and Calvin. Well, really Xander. So Ben goes in alone because they wanted to keep Ren outside, so Maddie ended up staying in the car with her. And so they go in, and he's asking, you know, questions, trying to get them to recount as much as they can of the night before. And so Xander's telling to her, and Calvin is sitting there with this look on his face, and eventually he said, "Why are you asking so many questions?" or something to that effect. And he's like, "Well, I'm trying to help." And so they made a comment about, and the device is gone, the military came in, and we still don't know where Chris is, and and he said they was about to go on this whole tangent. And so he was like, "The military didn't take the device, I have it." And so Xander's like, "What?" He said, "Yeah, I have it. I thought that I could figure out where it came from." And so of course Calvin jumps up and takes a couple of swings at him, misses, and they end up escorting him out of the bar. And so Xander is just sitting there, and he's just drinking his beer. And he's like, "Look, I'm sorry, I was just trying to help. If you want it back, I'll get it for you." So it's outside in the truck. So he goes out to get it. Initially, Ren didn't want to let it go because, as far as she was concerned, because she heard this song, she's like, "Oh, this is some connection to her sister." So they had to try to explain to her, like, "Oh, Xander's a friend too, and we're just trying to help." And so they gave it to they went on and gave it to Xander, and Ben was like, "Well, you know, I used to work in marine biology. We used to work with the Navy or something. I'll see what they have to say about it, and I think that you guys focus on trying to trace where it came from, see if you could track whatever, you know, the camera or whatever, where it came from, and we'll just go from there." And so Calvin snatches the thing and walks off, and they part ways. And so you go to the facility where they're holding Ren's sister, and this doctor, she had already got him caught up. So he they say the SIREN song. It's similar to, it's the same thing that Ren did to Ben. But so this doctor he's sitting there, and he's enamored with her. So he's watching her in this tank, and she's just, you know, swimming, just doing what they do. And he's just completely enamored with her, and he was all apologetic about, he's sorry about what they were, you know, about the test and the whole thing, even though he knew he should stop it. But, you know, he's just, you can see that he's, whatever power they have, she's worked it on him. And you see Ben, he's still at the facility, they still drugging him up, And I don't know how long he's been at this facility, but whatever drugs they gave him, he's kind of coming to, and he's kind of taking note of his surroundings, and he sees, I guess, the nurse that he usually see, or that's usually there drugging his ass up. She keeps her cell phone in her back pocket, and so you see him eyeing her phone. And so then you go to Ben. Ben and Maddie are back at her place. Her father is the sheriff, so he walks in. They overhear him talking about the blood not being human. Now remember when Ren killed the guy? She actually cut herself, so she did leave some blood behind. And so when they heard that, they're kind of hustling, trying to figure out, okay, this could be connected to our girl over here. So he brought the file home of the case, and her, she inquired, well, what's going on? He said, oh, no, just the case I'm working on. And so they kind of, and her and Ben kind of looked at each other. But I forgot, okay, did Maddie and Ren have a little homoerotic experience? Let's see, let's backtrack a little bit. So while Ben was inside, Maddie stayed outside with Ren in the truck. And so Ren started running her fingers through her hair because, okay, so my battery died, so where was I? Okay, so they were in the truck, and I think it's because Maddie is similar to her sister in the sense that they have similar texture hair. They both have darker skin, and so she was kind of all running her fingers through her hair and touching her skin and smelling her. And Maddie has a tattoo of a feather on her chest, and so she was explaining to her, oh, it's some kind of bird, and my father's Haida, and this bird means, has this special meaning. And she's explaining, just explaining that whole thing to her. But she was all up on her. I was like, oh. And so when you go back to when they were sitting at her place before her father walked in, she was just like, it's something about her, like I felt like I was drawn to her. And so Ben looked at her and was like, well, yeah, me too. So that's pretty much how it ended. Yeah, so that's that's pretty much all for this episode. So I am going to end this here, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode.